Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. I am the Archivist Cherie Heiberg. For those who have never seen Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy, this is a segment in which the writers of CIG go over the history and formation of the systems that we plan to put in Star Citizen the game. Now that we've gotten that very important introduction out of the way, I would like to tell you about the Cano system, which is not spelled like or associated with the Mortal Kombat character. So, brief history of Cano system, kind of brief introduction to the whole deal, is that it was discovered in 2463 by Tabitha Castor during the early days of Project Farstar. For those of us who are familiar with our timeline, you know that 2463 is pretty soon after 2438, which is when we had first contact with the Banu. Now, because of the sudden knowledge that we were not alone in the universe, sentience-wise, humanity just was like, oh man, we gotta colonize as many worlds as possible. And they really kicked it into gear after the successful colonization of Virgil. Farstar specifically was a push to find and settle on frontier worlds, which were basically worlds that we only had like one jump point to, that were kind of on the outskirts of UEE territory. And Tabitha Castor, who couldn't really do anything, she was very sick, she couldn't really get on spaceships or go flying. So what she would do is she would purchase raw scanner data from ships returning from frontier worlds like Virgil, Davian, and Bremen. And she would kind of manually comb through them to find evidence that there might be jump points. She successfully did this, and then she commissioned nav jumper Jamel Normand to confirm that the jump point had indeed been discovered. He took a chance on her, and they in turn discovered jump point to Cano together. The system is named after both of them. It's a portmanteau of their last names, Castor and Normand, Cano. And yep, that's pretty much the end of the brief history of the system. With that out of the way, let's go and zoom in on the star. The star is a G-type main sequence star, which I've talked about before. Sort of like our sun is a G-type main sequence star. The interesting thing about these stars, which I don't know if I've touched on before, is that more and more evidence is showing that it's kind of weird for life to form around stars like this. One of the prevailing hypotheses is that life is probably going to be much more commonly found around K-type stars, which are one step down on the main sequence. They're cooler, they're longer lived, they don't emit as much harmful radiation like UV radiation, which, as you know, will give us skin cancer if we have too much of it. For more information on this, I really recommend seeking out the article "Our Sun May Not Be Ideal for Alien Life" by Lisa Grossman. You can find it on the onlines. And all this is to say that because of this information, we had no way of really knowing that there might be life forming in this system. Let's visit Cano 1 before we touch on that whole mysterious life phrase. Cano 1 is a mesoplanet. It's tidally locked to the star. Tidal locking means that one side faces the sun at all times, which we're not communicating with the animation here, but we hope to one day. And a mesoplanet is a term that we borrowed from Isaac Asimov, which is a planet that's small enough to possibly be considered a dwarf planet, but it has cleared the neighborhood of any, like meteors or stuff like that, which is one of the requirements for a dwarf planet to be classified as a dwarf planet. Mercury, in our parlance that we've set up for this game, would be a mesoplanet. Cano 1 is worth visiting. However, it doesn't have any life on it because about half the world is magma and half the world is not. And in the solar terminus between the magma half and the not half, there are giant crystalline structures that are stories high. So absolutely worth checking out from space just to take in that spectacular sight. Definitely not worth walking on the planet, though. It is, as I said, very hot. Let's pop over to Cartina. Cartina is an ocean planet. It does have life on it, however, it is microscopic. It's plankton, which was discovered by a researcher who was living on Cano 2 named Dr. Satomi Bechtel. She named this life form Canaliska. It's a little zooplankton. The plankton itself appears to exhibit farming behavior with algae and things, which was something really, we hadn't seen before and we haven't really seen since. It triggered the Fair Chance Act, which had been put in place some years before, and the people who had been on this world for quite some time, hundreds of years, who lived in sealed arcologies under the surface, had to fight for their rights to stay on the planet while still agreeing not to destroy the burgeoning life that was discovered by Dr. Bechtel. So, unfortunately, you can't migrate to Cartina nowadays because of the Fair Chance Act, but you can visit it. It's a very famous tourist destination. It's supposed to be beautiful, lovely ocean world. However, the atmosphere is toxic, hence people living in sealed arcologies under the surface. So if you want to visit Cartagena City, which is a bustling live place and has most of the population on the planet, you can absolutely do so. You could probably find mission givers, stuff to buy, things to do, all kinds of stuff. Hopefully when we get it in the game, it'll be a really interesting and weird place to go. Bioshock the planet maybe, but without the objectivist philosophy. Let's move on, now that we have discussed this interesting planet, to the asteroid belt. You can see it all around the system. It used to be a mining hub. These days, people don't really mine on it so much, not because it's depleted of resources, but because Cartina is protected by the Fair Chance Act. There's not really any development going on in the system. They can't expand their population beyond what they already have, and it's a little bit of an out-of-the-way system. It only has a few jump points. It's got this little Davian jump point, though, which is very nice. It's probably interesting to visit because it's full of abandoned mining operations. So I think, personally, it would be fun to go and seek out ghost mining stations and see what you can find. Let's move on to Cano 3. Hi. Hello, Cano 3. Cano 3 is a terrestrial smog planet. Smog planet is another term that we use in the game that isn't a real scientific term, but it communicates what we want to communicate, which is that it is a planet that's very hot with a high-pressure toxic atmosphere that's impossible to terraform, which is Venus. So what makes Cano 3 interesting is that it has a pressurized research station on it that is dedicated to finding ways to possibly terraform smog planets, which is sort of like the Xi'an station that they have, I think, in the Palace system. But I would need to double check, look that up, since it's been a long time since I have done the Loremakers on the system that has that particular terraforming station in it. Cano 4 is the last planet in the system. It is a gas giant. We would very much like it one day for the art to look like how we describe it, which is a green grass giant with like a bunch of spots on it with rust color bands. It's peppered by asteroids over the years. So I guess these little spots sort of communicate that a little bit, but I'd like it to be really obvious. And it's, even for a gas giant, it's a very stormy planet. So it's hard to harvest resources here, although it is possible. And because of its spots and because of what a pain in the butt it is to harvest hydrogen and helium and the like, it has been nicknamed Pox by the locals. That, my friends, is Cano in a nutshell. To summarize what you can do, or what you could possibly do on this planet. Ooh, also check out that jump to Pyro. Pyro means pirates, and it's near the asteroid belt. The possibilities abound. So once again, to get back to summarizing, you can try your hand at mining in the asteroid belt. You could possibly seek out ghost asteroid stations. You could harvest resources on Pox, should you dare. You could see the crystalline formations on Cano 1, and you could visit Cartina City for the hustle, the bustle, and possibly new missions. Thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of Loremaker's Guide to the Galaxy. Once again, I am Cherie Heiberg, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.